Hi, and welcome to this episode of Brainy Moms. I'm Dr. Amy Moore, your host, here with my co-host, Teri Miller, coming to you today from Colorado Springs, Colorado. We are excited to bring you a conversation with our guest today, Dr. Orlena Kerek. She's coming all the way from Spain as a pediatrician, a mom of four, a health coach, and author of the book, Building Simple Habits to a Healthy Me. Dr. Orlena teaches women to lead a healthy life so they can increase energy levels, lose weight, and lead a long, healthy, and amazing life, all without having to think about it.
I love it. It's good information, and I can't wait to dig in. So glad you're here, Dr. Orlena. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be chatting to you both.
Yeah. Well, so this is something that so many of us moms struggle with, and can't wait to hear all the exciting details about how we can really make those changes, not just head knowledge, but life experience changes. But before we get into that, let's give our listeners a little bit of your background and how you ended up where you are today doing what you do.
I will give you the short version because it's quite a long story. So I'm from the UK, from England, and oh my goodness, 11 or 12 years ago, I moved to Spain. Really, I think for lifestyle reasons, the UK is quite cold and busy, and I just wanted something different to do. I always think it's slightly ironic. Part of me went into medicine to travel, and I ended up doing the traveling bit, but somehow my clinical career got a little bit lost on the road. So to cut a long story short, I stopped doing clinical medicine and turned to the internet, really, and started off thinking about picky eating for kids because, hey, guess what? Some of my children were picky. And I was like, oh, they don't just eat the vegetables that I present them with. They just pick out the bits of pasta. How is this working? And over the years, I have pivoted, and now I work with mums for lots of reasons. But one of them is that, you know, the best thing that you can do to teach your kids healthy living is to demonstrate healthy living. And I realized that that wasn't the case, that so many of the mothers that I was chatting to were wanting their kids to eat healthily, but they weren't eating healthily themselves. And, you know, it just doesn't work when you're doing that. So now, as you said in the introduction, I help women basically love healthy living. And really, part of that is prioritizing themselves and going, hey, you know what? I do matter. And I want to do the things that really light me up. You know, I always talk about living a life of luxury, by which I mean going swimming and cycle riding or whatever it is that you really, really enjoy, but allowing yourself to do those things so that you can enjoy your life.
Yeah.
I love that transition.
Yeah, the way you're talking about, we have to be the example. If we are demonstrating healthy living, then our kids will pick that up. But immediately what I think of is all the reasons why we don't do that as busy moms. And so you talk about three big excuses that we all have. So those three big excuses that you talk about are, I don't have enough time. Yeah. I've tried before and it didn't work. And I can't afford to invest in healthy living. Yes. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, all of those. You know, and in my mind as well, so many people say to me, you know, I want to be healthy or lose weight or whatever it is, and I want to do it without thinking. And that without thinking thing is all about habits. And I talk about habits and systems and routines. And as we're talking about all these excuses, I don't have time, I don't have energy, that's all what it is. I'm in this habit of doing it this way, and I don't want to change. And it's basically all of those are just that. They're just excuses. They're just the way your brain works and says, oh yeah, I can't do that. Now, I do know that people are busy, and I do know that people have to think about how they spend their money and their time and things like that. But when we look at the difference between someone who is leading a healthy life and someone who isn't leading a healthy life, what is the difference? It's not that, you know, they have more time in their day or anything else. It's basically that they have systems and habits and routines that are set up to support those actions, essentially. And some of that can be really just like quite boring and mundane, to be perfectly honest. Like here, you know, I have 4 children. Wednesday is what I call our squash day. You know, that day when everything is happening. I've got client calls and my kids have got all their after school activities. So what do? I use the slow cooker, and I make sure that I cook something, do it at 7 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't take very long because I'm in the habit of doing it. And then dinner is cooked and I know that I've got a nutritious, healthy meal for my kids, but if you haven't got that system set up, it's really, really difficult. And that's when those excuses start coming. And I think fear is another big thing. People are a bit scared of like, oh my goodness, what is my life going to look like if I make changes?
Right. Everyone wants just the magic pill or the easy solution, without having to put habits in place that then will put us on autopilot eventually, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, exactly. And I think, I see so many people standing right there at the beginning going, yeah, I want to do this. I want to, what I do is stop emotional eating. I want to be more healthy. I want to do exercise. But when they really stand and look at what's going on inside, they're saying, I'm really scared. I'm scared of that unknown. Our brains don't like unknown. And part of our brain is kind of saying, hey, you know what? Things are going well. You're alive. Let's not change anything. And, we have to overstep that and go, hey, you know what? Actually, it can be really easy. And one of the tools I use is I walk people through a 2-week reboot. And part of that is showing you that you can do anything for 2 weeks. You can you can be healthy for 2 weeks, and actually you can really enjoy it. And you do that process and you think, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought. It wasn't, oh my goodness, my life is, nothing without, all the things that I have got in place now. And as you go through that journey, I think you begin to see things in a different way, and you begin to enjoy things in a different way. And gradually you sort of pick up these habits, and the habits become stronger and stronger and stronger until those new habits are the habits that you turn to, and you just do things on autopilot.
Yeah.
So what's the magic about 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. So if you're thinking about food, one of the things I do is 2 weeks of healthy eating. So, that looks like cutting out what I call white refined carbohydrate, basically sugar, flour, which all gets processed in our body very much like glucose, like table sugar. So there are several things. Number one is your taste buds. Your taste buds actually regenerate every 2 weeks. So if you're eating highly processed foods, yeah, exactly. It's interesting, isn't it? And you're constantly eating sugar and sugar. Then part of it is your brain going, I want sugar. I want that quick release glucose. But part of it is your taste buds going, I like the flavor. If you cut out that quick release glucose and you eat healthy fruits and vegetables, your taste buds change and you taste the flavor. I have this really story that I like to tell called the strawberry test. And one Easter here in Spain, it's strawberry season. I bought some strawberries. Delicious, beautiful. We have we're so lucky, amazing fruit and vegetables here in Spain. And this strawberry is just, bursting with strawberry flavor. Then I eat some chocolate. My children have got chocolate, so I eat some chocolate, obviously super sweet, super rich. And then I eat another strawberry. The same strawberry, well, not obviously the same one, but from the same batch of strawberries. But now that strawberry tastes sour and horrible. And I'm kind of thinking, why would I eat this strawberry? It doesn't taste very nice. And it's because the sugar has totally masked that flavor of strawberry, and you can't taste strawberry because all your mouth is looking for is that sugary taste. It's just flooded with sugary taste. But people are doing that every single day to their bodies by eating processed foods the whole time. That's, you're eating that processed food and your body can't recognize the lovely tastes that actually fruit and vegetables have. So that's one reason. But also, your brain gets used to finding energy from within your body. We have this idea of, oh my goodness, when I'm hungry, I need to get energy from outside. But actually, that's not true. And your body is designed such that, if you don't eat, you'll go and get some energy from inside. So there's lots of different reasons that I pick 2 weeks. But also, I think 2 weeks feels like a doable amount of time. If I would say to you, you have to do this for 6 months, you'd probably run away. 6 months is far, far, far too long. Whereas 2 weeks, you kind of think, yeah, I can do something for 2 weeks. And at the end of 2 weeks, I can just go back to how I was if that's what I'm going to do. So I think it just feels like a doable exercise.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's a great explanation.
Yeah. Like you can grasp making that change for 2 weeks, like you said, as opposed to 6 months, which feels overwhelming. And I love just thinking about the learning curve. Like with any new thing, any new change, there is this overwhelming learning curve. But if I can think about, I'm just going to get through 2 weeks. I'm just going to put one foot in front of another for 2 weeks. And I love at the very beginning of your book, you say, most people don't have a knowledge gap when it comes to healthy living. They have a doing it gap.
Yes.
Oh, that's so great. And so if we can just bridge that gap just for 2 weeks, that feels like I can put my hands around that. I can make that happen.
Definitely. And I think the other thing about that as well is that, going back to habits are really, really strong. And, they're a double-edged sword because they are so strong. So if you've got habits that are healthy for your body, that is fabulous because that is what your body is going to want to do. So for example, I have a very strong habit of eating fruit and vegetables. That's what I've been doing for the last however many years. So when COVID hit, I'm eating fruit and vegetables, not because I'm, better than other people, but just because that is the habit that is ingrained in me. Whereas other people would be baking and all of these other things. So habits are amazingly useful. Your brain doesn't care whether it's healthy or not. Your body clearly does. But the other thing is they come back and they come back and they come back. And you will see that you can reopen a habit. So for example, in COVID time, I haven't played the piano since I was 18. And then not being able to go out, I dug out this old keyboard and I started playing the piano. And I hadn't played for, oh my goodness, I can't even do the maths, 20 or 30 years or something. And then I'm thinking, oh my goodness, my fingers remember how to do this. Like, obviously I was a little bit rusty, but I could still play the piano, having not played it for ages. But other habits are like that as well. You can reawaken these habits. So, and not necessarily the good habits. So for example, people who are in my group coaching, they're doing so amazingly well. They've nailed emotional eating. They've really got to a good relationship with food. They can walk in, we have this cupcake test. I walked in, someone offered me a cupcake and it was easy for me to say no. It wasn't clenching my teeth and going, I don't want a cupcake. Then something stressful happens. You're going on a long journey with young kids for a month and stress, you can see that you're stressed. And so that habit is going to come back. Now, luckily, you're now aware of it and you take steps to stop that. But what happens to so many people is, typically January the 1st, I'm going to start a new habit. By the time you get to February the 7th, you've forgotten about that habit and you've gone back to your old, stronger habits. And then you start blaming yourself and going, I'm a failure, I can't do it. And I just say, no, you're a human mind and you've got a human body. And it's just that other habit was stronger. And that's it. It's just a habit. You just have to change the habit. You just have to make the healthy one stronger and not get despondent just because, oh yeah, the other habit came back a little bit. That's fine. Be aware and just move on.
Yeah, that's so good.
I like that.
And
so
we so do it.
I know. So I want to back up a little bit. And so you identify 4 pillars of healthy living. So let's talk briefly about each of those pillars.
Perfect. Yes. And, the reason I have chosen my 4 pillars is because on my own podcast, I have interviewed cardiologists and neurologists and cancer experts and all of these people. And you know what? They all say the same thing. And it's not complicated. It's about keeping it easy and doable. So pillar number 1 is healthy eating, which in a nutshell is fruit and vegetables. I personally advocate the Mediterranean style diet, but it doesn't have to be Mediterranean, but plant-based is good. So fruit and vegetables. And as a side note, I have this phrase, which is the best thing you can give your kids is your own happiness. And the second thing you can give the best thing is vegetables.
I love that.
It's so true. When I say happiness, I mean health and happiness. You work on your health and happiness, give your kids vegetables and everything will fall into place. So that's pillar number 1. And essentially it's, healthy foods, less processed foods. Pillar number 2 is exercise that lights you up. And I really think it needs to be exercise that lights you up. I don't want people doing exercise because they feel they have to drag themselves to the gym at 6 a.m. If you love going to the gym at 6 a.m, then that is fabulous. If you don't, well, give it a little bit of time and try and enjoy it. But if you don't, find something that you really, really do feel lights you up, so that you're doing it because you love it. And for me, it's swimming in the sea. I love swimming in the sea, and I'm lucky I live near the Mediterranean. Pillar number 3 is what I call delicious, healthy sleep. Sleep, so important for so many reasons, for weight loss, for long-term health, for productivity, and super underrated, I think. People just kind of go, yeah, I know I should have more sleep, and then they don't do anything about it. And then the last pillar is emotional wellness. And this is where, you know, your relationship with food comes in, where your relationship with yourself comes in, where mindset comes in, where stress comes in. Stress is, you know, a huge factor in modern life now. And we basically live off, you know, too much stress, which is damaging for so many reasons, for our health, for weight. You know, if your goal is weight loss, again, it's going to be really difficult if you are super stressed. But I also think that pillar 4 is really the crux, because if you don't change your mindset, then you're not, just life happens. When life starts lifing, you go back to those old habits. But if you change your mindset and those habits start to come back in, then you're like, oh, okay, I'm in a position to be able to change that. And I think it's about building up, you know, your stability in all 4 of those pillars. So you do a little bit, you've got this foundation, and then you're building another level and another level and another level until you're doing it all without thinking. And normally that journey is, oh my goodness, I'm enjoying it so much. Now I want to try something else. Now I'm going to think about, I don't know, kefir and kombucha and fermenting foods, or now I'm going to try something else, not because you think, oh goodness, I need to do this, but because you're genuinely interested and think, oh, I wonder what that would be like.
Oh my goodness. So I just had this aha moment. As I was reading your book, I was thinking, okay, these, and you said this yourself, the reason you chose these pillars are because over and over and over again from experts, these are the things that we focus on. That's what's important. And everybody kind of converges on that agreement, right? Mm-hmm. And so as I was reading your book, I said the same thing. These pillars are not new. So what is different about your approach? And so what I'm hearing you say is it's the mindset that is the focus of the other pillars. Whereas when we look at these pillars, typically we go, okay, diet and exercise are the most important things that we need for health. And oh, by the way, remember to sleep and manage stress and be mindful, right? And what I'm hearing you say is you have to practice mindfulness and a mindset switch in order for those other pillars to fall into place. Is that what you're saying?
That's got to be first.
Yes. Totally. I always say, if people are talking about weight loss, people always say, oh, I need to do more exercise. Well, actually, that's not necessarily true. It's what I say is 80% nutrition, 20% exercise, and 100% mindset. It's 100% that. I know that adds up to 200%, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It is the mindset piece. The mindset piece is really, really important. And if we're thinking about, you know, people being overweight, which is, in my mind, the problem with that is that it is an indication of unhealthy living. And if we're going to be really sort of hard-nosed about it, why are people overeating? The definition of, you know, why do we eat? We eat to nourish our body. So we eat to make sure we've got enough fuel. But people who are overweight are eating more than their body needs. Now, why are they doing that? And some of them, you know, some of it's habits that you've grown up with since children, but a lot of it is emotional as well. A lot of it is, okay, I'm eating for emotional reasons, whether that's pleasure or to avoid stress, but it comes down to that emotion. So until you figure out that emotional piece, you're going to come back. I can tell you to eat vegetables. I can give you recipes. I can even come to your house and cook. But when those emotions come back, you are going to turn to your emotional eating again, unless you do that emotional foundational work.
Which is in the mind, starts in the mind. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you give this example of getting curious about why do you want to eat chocolate at 3 p.m? Talk a little bit about adopting that curiosity and sense of wonder mindset in solving this.
Yeah, I always say when something goes wrong, so, you know, you're doing your 2-week reboot and you say, I'm going to do it perfectly for 2 weeks. Actually, nobody ever does it perfectly for 2 weeks. So that's perfectly fine. But I always say when things go wrong, they're a golden learning opportunity, because what it is a repeated behavior that, you know, if it was just one off, it wouldn't matter. You did it once, it doesn't matter. You know, so you're going running, you trip over, no worries, it happened once, I got up, I picked myself up. But if it's something that you're doing repeatedly, then you need to have a look at it and think, okay, so what is going on here? And it's about being curious and not blaming yourself. So many people say, okay, I'm going to set my goal to never eat chocolate. Then at 3 o'clock, they find themselves eating chocolate, and then they start beating themselves up and start thinking things like, I'm so weak-willed and I haven't got any discipline. Actually, by the way, forming new habits has nothing to do with discipline. It's all about setting yourself up for success and not using that discipline bit, because that can last for 2 weeks. There's another reason why 2 weeks is really good, because you can use discipline for a little bit, but you can't carry on using it in the long term. So yeah, you just get curious and you start thinking, so what's happening? And you know the answers to this. Like, I don't know the answers, but it could be, I'm feeling tired after work, and I'm feeling that I don't have enough time for myself and that nobody's taking care of me. So, you know, you want to be looking at those negative emotions. I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling overwhelmed. And what I want, those positive emotions, I want to feel loved, I want to feel nurtured, I want to feel happy and calm and relaxed. And, you know, looking at when I'm eating that food, what are the emotions that are coming up for me? What happens when I eat chocolate? And I walk people through this exercise actually, and it's really interesting. People will say, yeah, when I think of chocolate, I think of calm and happy or excitement, but people don't realize that because we're doing things so quickly, they have to take time to slow down and have a look and think about these emotions here, the negative ones and the positive ones. And then the next step is, okay, well, I've got too much stress in my life. How am I going to reduce the stress in my life? What tools am I going to use to reduce the stress in my life? And it's different for everybody, but big hint, all 4 of those pillars are going to help. So if you start implementing exercise is a really good tool to reduce your stress as well. And if you start going to bed on time and making sure you get 8 hours sleep and, you know, relax and get good quality sleep, that's going to reduce your stress as well. So they are all connected. And then obviously you want to think about, well, okay, I want these positive emotions. How do I get those positive emotions? And, you know, in a way that I'm in charge of. You don't want somebody else to be reliant on your emotions. You don't want to say, okay, I want to feel loved and accepted. Therefore, I need somebody else to help me feel loved and accepted. That's not a long-term solution. You need to work out how you can get those emotions yourself and how you can generate those emotions.
Within yourself, yeah. A few minutes ago, I want to come back to this. A few minutes ago, you said you can get by, you know, 2 weeks, you can get by short term with discipline, with like willpower. But you're talking about something different, setting yourself up to make those changes. Tell us more about that, because I'm like, okay, yeah, discipline's not going to work for me. What is going to work for me?
Yeah, well, it is. Essentially, the way I kind of look at it is we've got 2 parts of our brain. Now, I know this is not very scientific and definitely not the neurophysiology that other doctors would explain, but I call it your habit brain and your thinking brain.
Okay.
And your habit brain is really, really useful because it does things on automation. So think about, okay, I need to brush my teeth. If you had to wake up every morning and figure out how to brush your teeth, I'm going to read this book about how to brush my teeth and I'm going to read the instructions. Oh my goodness, we wouldn't get anything done all day. So habits are really good. They're really efficient. They're sort of rinse and repeat. So what we want to do is use our thinking brain to help us set up those habits. So going back to the chocolate example, we're using our thinking brain to understand, okay, so, well, at 3 o'clock, this is what's going on. I'm feeling tired and stressed. I'm driving home and I'm looking at my habits. And part of it is the emotion, but part of it is the physical. Yeah, I'm driving back. I always stop at this particular garage. Habits are very triggered by geography as well and by certain situations. So, you know, this is what I'm doing. How can I set it up so that I'm not doing this? So you might take a new route on your way back so that you're not stopping at that same garage. You might implement, you know, going for a walk or a cup of tea or something before you start driving home. Or, you know, you might start thinking, actually, I'm going to go for a run in the morning because that's going to give me some me time that I'm lacking. So you're using your thinking brain, but you're setting yourself up for habits. And the way I look at it is, you know, those little train sets that children have, and they lay out the track and then they push the little train along. We have loads of them, and my house is often cluttered with them. It's that your thinking brain is laying out the track. This is where we're going to go all day. And then your habit brain is following the track. And all your habit brain does is follow the track. And that's what you do. You just use your thinking brain. And it's not about discipline. If you had to use discipline all the time, you wouldn't get very far. They've done really interesting studies, actually, looking at people who, and they gave them little, you know, buzzers to say, okay, I'm going to set the buzzer off when I'm putting myself in a situation where I'm going to make a decision. And actually, it wasn't that the people who were more disciplined made more good decisions. They just made less decisions. They didn't put themselves, they weren't faced with those decisions. So if you put yourself in a situation where you're going to make a decision, you'll say, you know, in the morning, you'll say, yes, I'm going to eat healthily. I'm going to make a good choice. I'm going to make a good choice. By the time you get to evening, you're exhausted. You've done a day's work. Those decisions are going to be, I don't care. I'm reaching for frozen pizza. I'm going to takeout. I'm going for all of these things. Your decisions are going to be not supporting your long-term health. So it's about minimizing the amount of decisions that you need to make, which is why habits, systems, and routines are the way forwards, because you're allowing your brain just to get on and use its habit brain without putting it in decision-making mode.
Okay.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
So I have a habit of drinking lattes from, and in fact, my teenager just brought me this because he knows my habit and will stop for me on his way back. And it's this lovely rush of dopamine, right? To get my latte that probably is 500 calories. So
you've got lots of sugar in it.
It's sugar-free actually, but it's a 20-ounce drink with oat milk. And so that's carbs. So what I do is I leave 10 minutes early when I have to go somewhere so that I have time to take a detour to my favorite coffee shop on the way. And so I need to switch my routine and say, I'm not going to leave 10 minutes early because then I won't have time to stop.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll change my route. I will just stay on the highway.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I do that for 2 weeks in a row,
okay,
then I'll have a new habit.
Yeah.
You might do. So I think there's a few questions that you can ask yourself. Number one is, how do you make your good habit easy? So you might want to replace that habit. It's kind of difficult to take a habit of not doing something, if that makes sense. Often you want to replace it with something else. So if you're thinking about coffee, well, if you're used to caffeine for a start, your body is going to have some physical dependence on that. So you need to be aware that you can stop it cold turkey, but you'll have headaches and you'll feel horrible.
Right. And I'm not going to give up my morning coffee that I brew myself, right? This is my bonus coffee.
Yeah, like a treat, like your chocolate.
But yes, my body is still used to the bonus caffeine, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if you've got another coffee, then you can just cut that out if you want to, but you might want to replace it with something else. So you could replace it with going for a walk or a different drink or doing some physical movement. But you might find that the problem is, you know, when you do something positive and you say, right, I'm going to go for a walk. So you go out and you do the walk and you've done the walk and you can kind of put a tick on and move on with the day. But if you're taking something away, like, oh my goodness, I normally have a coffee at 10 o'clock and now it's 10:30 and I still haven't had my coffee. And now it's 11 o'clock and I still haven't had my coffee. And this just goes on and on and on. So you've got a longer period of time as opposed to just, yep, I've done that. Do you see the difference? There's a sort of negative hole that you need to fill.
Gotcha.
So filling it with something else can be beneficial because your brain is looking for something to do. Now, sometimes what you can do is create something like, I'm going to use my habit tracker and I'm going to give myself a tick. I've reached 10:30 and I haven't had my coffee. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I have a sort of internal limit that after 12 o'clock, I don't have coffee because it affects my sleep.
Oh yeah, I don't have that limit.
Okay.
I'll drink it all day.
That it might take you longer, but you can give yourself stars. I haven't had my coffee. I've done this. And you can give your star for every time you think, do I want my coffee? I'm not going to have it. Do I want my coffee? I'm not going to have it. So you're giving yourself something positive to do. So those are different things. But essentially what, the questions you need to ask is, how do I make my good habit, the new habit, easier? So if that's habit tracking, I've got my piece of paper, I've got my pen here. It's really easy for me to do that new habit. How do I make the not desired habit difficult? So, I'm going to leave late, and make sure there isn't time for me to stop. And then, have a think about, what other things are going on for you? What other than the coffee? Is it just that it's giving you coffee? Is it giving you a feeling of relaxation, a little bit of time to yourself that you think, I want to spend 5 or 10 minutes, perhaps going out in the garden would give you that. But, thinking about, okay, it's not just the caffeine that it's giving me other things as well. And when you recognize that, it's much easier to replace it.
I love that. Yes, because to me, it's almost a form of self-care. It's treating myself, whereas, yes, I could treat myself with sparkling water or green tea to kind of fill that hole and that space.
Yeah, totally. And I would also say to you, if weight isn't an issue, if your weight is stable and you're not looking to lose weight, then carry on having your latte. Because if you think about the...
That's what I'm thinking.
Moving on to the next question.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, so yeah, maybe it's not such a bad thing, I mean, there are some habits that, like you said, that are self-care habits that if the world you might think the world would say, oh, that's not good. But if it's okay for you and you really can take that moment and think, this is working for me.
Coffee's good for you. Like, coffee's not bad for you.
Yeah.
The problem with coffee is if it's impacting your sleep, which it may or may not do, then yes, you may want to have a look at it and think, okay, I'm not sleeping well, so perhaps I need to reduce my coffee. Or, I'm getting headaches, perhaps I need to reduce my coffee. But if not, and weight's not an issue, and you're generally doing other things and you enjoy your coffee, why do you want to change it?
Yeah. Why do I? Okay, let's not. Okay. But I know that is an issue for some people.
But here's another thing that I say to people is, if you're going to do something that, like, that little sort of like guilt of like, oh my goodness, should I be doing this? I say to people, if you're going to eat or drink something, enjoy it, really enjoy it, relish it, make that you're like, this is my really, like, I'm really enjoying eating this cake or wine or beer or whatever it is, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to wolf it down and then feel guilty about it. What's the point in that? Like, if you are going to do it, really, really enjoy it.
I like that.
That's beautiful. I love it. So enjoy it, Amy. It's good.
So in your book, you say, I'm going to quote you, if you think of yourself as someone who leads a healthy life and looks after yourself, you'll start to do the things you need to get to the healthiest you. So why does that work?
Did I say that? That was really a great quote. Thank you.
Wasn't it?
Why does it work? Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. And it's all about your identity and how you think about yourself. And like, what is our identity and what are beliefs? So if we sort of like think about thoughts, we have so many thoughts, like they say 60,000 thoughts a day. Now, not all of those thoughts are true. We often think that all of the thoughts we have are true, but they aren't. They're just thoughts that flit through our brain. And what's a belief? A belief is something that we have thought so often that we hold it true to ourselves. And then identity is kind of a step above that. It's how we see ourselves, and it's how we make decisions, really. So, when we think about that time when I said, I ate vegetables during COVID. Well, I think of myself as somebody who eats vegetables. I think of myself as somebody who is healthy and looks after herself. And if you do that, then it's much, much easier to make decisions. Well, here's another really good example. If I were to say to you, hey, do you want a cigarette? What would you say to me? I'm presuming you're a non-smoker.
I'm a non-smoker, yes.
So if I say to you, do you want a cigarette? What do you say to me?
No, of course not.
Yeah, no thanks.
Exactly.
I'm not a person who smokes.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that's your identity, is not somebody who smokes. Now, if your identity was like, oh, well, I'm a reformed smoker, I've just given up smoking, well, then that question is going to be more difficult for you. You might be a bit like, do I or do I not want a cigarette? I'm not sure. But when you've got clear identity of, this is how I eat lots of vegetables, and I exercise, and I make sure I get my exercise, and I make sure I look after myself, it becomes a non-negotiable. It's just what you do. In the same way that you don't say, yeah, I want a cigarette. Why would you want a cigarette? I'm not a smoker.
Right. That's so interesting. Yeah. So that, like for healthy eating, I'm thinking, we could begin to sort of label ourselves like, I just begin to call myself a vegetarian, so, oh, no, thanks. I don't want that pulled pork sandwich. I'm vegetarian, or I'm gluten-free. Even you don't have to be celiac or whatever to make those choices. If you identify as that and begin that process, like you said, of mindset change, even if you fudge here and there, if the mindset is I'm gluten-free, then it can change your habits, right?
Yeah, exactly. And essentially what you've done is you've made a permanent decision. So when we were talking about how our brain doesn't like making decisions, you've just made that decision for, well, however long, the next however many years, probably life, if you're thinking about being a non-smoker, you've just made that decision. And it's such a strong decision that you no longer have to make that decision. When somebody asks you, you're so clear on the answer, but you can do the same with all of these other things, being vegetarian, vegan, whatever it is. It doesn't have to have that clear-cut line. It can just be, well, I get to decide the rules, but I look after myself, and I do exercise, and I eat healthily.
And is my choice consistent with that identity that I've chosen?
Yes, exactly. And so it makes choosing. So when you're in that situation, it makes choosing so easy, because you have a framework to fall back on. So you don't need to think about, like, every time I go out and somebody asks me if I want a cigarette, that thought process doesn't need to go through your brain, because it's clear to you. Every time somebody offers you a cigarette, you'll go, no, I don't want a cigarette. Why would I want a cigarette? But it means that every time you make that decision, am I going to have this thing or that thing? Your identity will help you go, yeah, I'm going to have the healthy thing, or the thing that I know is going to help me promote my health.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. It's all identity and mindset, and so much more than just discipline or willpower.
Exactly. And I think people get scared and think, oh my goodness, what would life look like without chocolate? Now, what they're really saying is, what would life look like if I didn't get my emotional wellness fix from chocolate? And the answer is, well, can you imagine if you got all the emotional wellness that you needed, that you felt happy, that you felt fulfilled, that you were really enjoying your life? Chocolate then stops being the focus of attention, and you go, well, I can choose to take or leave chocolate, but it doesn't really make that much difference. Yeah, it's okay to eat it, but I'm busy enjoying my life. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling all of these emotions. And sometimes I'm feeling sad, but that doesn't throw me off kilter so much. I'm just leading an amazing life. Sometimes I eat chocolate, sometimes I don't, but it doesn't all depend on the chocolate.
This is relatable to so many other areas. I'm thinking like codependent relationships, addictions, if those are the things that are the source of our happiness, it's not going to go well.
Yes, no, totally. And so part of that emotional work is understanding how you can generate your own emotions. And, I find emotions fascinating. I think because when I went to medical school, they didn't teach us anything about emotions, which now I look back and think that's crazy. Like, emotions are such a big, and we did psychology and stuff like that, but we didn't really think about emotions. I suspect because there isn't the sort of body of work that there is now, because I'm that old. But emotions are amazing. What are they? They're kind of our brains, our body's way of processing the world. And I hadn't really realized this for a long period of time, that we generate our emotions. And it's almost like a complex code that says, okay, this is how I interpret the world. So for example, you're a cave person, or, and back in the day, hunter-gatherer, and you see a little flicker of a tail. Well, do you think, okay, that could be a tiger? That flicker of that tail means fear. I've got to run away because the tiger might eat me. Or is that flicker, you know, a kitten's tail? And I'm going to think, oh, that's really sweet. So it gives us a lot more depth to interpret the world, as opposed to, oh, there's a tail that is moving. What does that mean? We've created these codes of, okay, this is what I feel. And obviously those emotions have huge, powerful messages quite a lot of the time, not least of, okay, this is something I don't really like. I don't want to be in this situation. But sometimes we get sort of stuck in this sort of rut of this emotion. I'm feeling this emotion. I'm feeling this emotion. And I feel powerless to get out of it because it's a habit essentially. And I want to get out of this habit of having this emotion and generate and enjoy the good, happy, positive emotions.
So I want to take a minute and apply this to parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk a lot about modeling and demonstrating these healthy lifestyle choices. And of course, we know from, social cognitive theory that children are going to learn that way. But what are your thoughts on the intentional conversations that parents should be having with their kids about healthy living choices? And along those lines, how do you not say things that then create body image issues or eating disordered thinking, especially in young girls?
Yeah, good questions.
Yeah.
And, I think it kind of depends on the age of the children. So I think number one, the thing that you want to be doing is modeling healthy living, healthy eating. And I think that includes presenting your children with healthy choices. And, I think it's kind of difficult for people to accept. But so many people go, I want my children to eat healthily. And then their kids are faced with so much packaged food throughout the day that it's really difficult. And then they say to me, my kids don't ever eat vegetables. And it's because essentially they're not presenting enough vegetables to their children. And so you need to look at everything that your kids are eating. Mm-hmm. And another really big tip, I think, is, you don't want to, one, demonstrate emotional eating in front of your children. Well, you don't want to demonstrate it at all, because even if you do it in secret, they're going to know about it. So you want to be healthy eating, for the hunger in front of your kids. And the other thing you want to make sure you don't do is set up that emotional connection with eating and children. And so that looks like not rewarding your kids with food and not punishing them with food. So for example, oh, you've been naughty, you can't have dessert. Now I say it's really easy to do. I remember when I had my first son, who's just about to turn 14, and, putting him in the car seat, and he hated being put in the car seat. And I quickly learned that if I handed him a biscuit, it was so easy to do, until this sort of alarm bell went off in my brain. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm saying, behave well, and you can have a biscuit. And that is setting up that emotional link. And so it is amazingly easy to do, but once you're aware of it, obviously you can make sure you don't do it. So thinking about health, I think in my family, we've always had that conversation about health. It's always been there. When they're little, they're not really interested. They're interested in what's tasty. But, I have always had it and said, this is healthy for you. Why don't we eat sweets the whole time? Well, it would be lovely to eat sweets the whole time, but it's not, or candies the whole time. It's not good for your body to do that. So thinking about what is good for your body. And then obviously as they get older and older, hopefully they will start to show interest, getting them in the kitchen. So for example, my kids, they like to make cakes. And I'm always horrified about how much sugar goes into these cakes. But it's a good learning process, and it's good for us to see, oh my goodness, even a homemade cake has a lot of sugar and a lot of flour and all of these things in. And think about the shop bought ones, which have other stuff that you don't really want to be eating, those emulsifiers and things like that. But so, you don't have to exclude sugar entirely for children. Obviously, it's about having those limits essentially.
Yeah, I had a mom talk to me about her child's emotional eating. Her child was 12 and would stress eat. She would come home and eat a whole sleeve of Oreos from the pantry. And I said, well, where's she getting the Oreos?
That's what I'm thinking. Get rid of the Oreos.
and the mom said, well, I buy them. I'm the one that stocked the pantry, of course. Well, maybe We don't stock the pantry with Oreos.
Mhm.
And so to me, it seems like our children could make better choices if they had better choices.
Mhm.
I totally
well.
agree. This is where I come back to that. Those were the conversations I used to have, but the issue isn't with the child. The issue is with the mother, and the mother needs to do the work to get over the emotional eating, to fix her relationship with food so she can then teach her daughter. Like, you can't teach your children. If you're emotional eating, it's very difficult to not teach your children, to have a good relationship with food. They copy everything that we do, and they copy emotional eating. And you ask about body image. Well, again, I think it comes down to demonstrating it, and demonstrating loving our bodies, however they are, and having that good relationship with food. I've spoken to so many people who say to me, oh, I was taken to Weight Watchers when I was 8 years old. And so they've lived this, I know it's heartbreaking, isn't it? Lived with this image, that idea of yo-yo dieting for years and years and years. And that's a hard habit to break, but you can break it once you're aware of it. It's the same as any habit.
Mhm.
So good.
Yeah, they learn from what we do, not from what we say.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Totally, 100%.
Yeah.
So we need to take a break and let Teri read a word from our sponsor, Learning RX. And when we come back, we want to hear about the resources that you have available. I know you have a podcast, and how listeners can learn more from you when we come back.
Did you know that more than 6 million children in America have been diagnosed with ADHD? Many of them struggle in school because of their condition. But what if I told you that poor attention may not be the primary cause of their struggles? In a research study with more than 5,000 people with ADHD, they found that working memory, long-term memory, and processing speed were less efficient than attention skills. So an intervention that only targets attention might miss the opportunity to work on those other skills we need to think and learn. Learning RX can help you identify which skills may be keeping your child from performing their best. In fact, they've worked with more than 100,000 children and adults who wanted to think and perform better. They'd like to help get your child on the path to a brighter and more confident future. Give Learning RX a call at 866-BRAIN-01 or visit learningrx.com. That's learningrx.com.
And we're back talking to Dr. Orlena about healthy habits. That's the word healthy. Sorry, guys. So Dr. Orlena, talk to us about how our listeners can learn more from you. You have tons, you've got a big presence on the web.
Yes.
Well, thank you for asking as well. So I have a podcast which comes out on Tuesday called Fit and Fabulous at 40 and Beyond. It's your kind of weekly inspiration and motivation, me just saying, hey, yes, you can do it, you can still do it. I have my book, which you mentioned, which is called Building Simple Habits to a Healthy Me. And actually, I have a really lovely little package at the moment, which is called End Emotional Eating. And it's my book, but as a PDF that you print out, along with a masterclass, essentially all the tools you need to combat emotional eating. And that's, a small little package, which is super amazing. I'm super excited. I've just only launched it in the last week, so I'm excited about that. And then obviously I do coaching. I have a group program, which is another amazing resource. I have a lifetime access to that. And that's, by invitation, people chat to me before they're interested in that and find out about me. And my website is drorlena.com.
Okay.
All right. And you also have a Facebook community. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah. No, I do, but I have so many things. I didn't want to list everything. I do have a Facebook community as well, and that's another free resource. And I do lives in there, chat to people. It's where people can access me and ask questions.
Okay. Where can our listeners get a copy of your book, Building Simple Habits to a Healthy Me? What's the best way to get that?
They can either get it on Amazon.
Okay.
To get the paperback, but in the End Emotional Eating package, which is $27, it comes with the book, but it's a PDF version of the book. So unfortunately, I'd love to be able to send it out, but there isn't a resource that allows me to do that. And it comes with other resources as well. So it's a little package which has got essentially all the resources that you need. So if emotional eating is something that you're interested in, I recommend that little package, which is, you know, an affordable package. If you're just interested in, you know, healthy living, then Amazon is the place to get it.
Okay. All right.
All right. Is there anything that you would like to tell our listeners that you haven't gotten a chance to talk about today?
No, only thank you for having me. And, you know, I think it starts with one step, which is, oh, you know what? I am going to prioritize my health and my wellness. And then the next step is making it fun and working out which bits of it really, you know, how it works to fit in with your life, essentially.
Great advice.
Yeah.
All right. This has been such a fantastic conversation. We want to thank you, Dr. Orlena, for sharing your wisdom, your encouragement, and your insights. So listeners, if you would like more information about Dr. Orlena's work, her website is drorlena.com. That's DRORLENA.com. You can find her on Facebook and on Instagram at Dr._Orlena. We'll put all of her links and handles in the show notes, as well as links to access the resources that she talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for listening today. If you loved our show, we would love it if you would leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. If you would rather watch us, we are on YouTube, and you can find us on every social media channel at the Brainy Moms. So look, until next time, we know that you're busy moms and we're busy moms. So we're out.
See ya.